Hello, friends, and welcome to today's episode of Booked. I'm your host, Saffron Asteria, and I'm joined today by the incredible author Kyle Farnworth. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm happy that you're here too. I ever since I finished the last page of this friggin' book, I have not stopped thinking about it. I tell
Mhm.
everybody that I can possibly think of that reads, I go, I'm gonna tell you about this book that's coming out, and now it's here, and we're celebrating it this week. So you're having your Medusa week, which is
I
very
am. I have before we start, I
Mhm.
have to thank you. You've been incredible through this whole process. You've been championing this book long before anybody even knew it existed. So real quick before you gush about me, shout out to you. I appreciate you
Thank you.
very much. You know that.
Well, thank you for letting me read it. That was like a really unexpected treat that kind of fell into my inbox. And you were like, "Hey, can you check this thing out?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I was like, "Sure, yeah, another book somebody sent me." And I was reading it, and I thought, "Where did this come from? This is so good."
Yeah,
And yeah,
I'll tell that story. It was
mhm,
I had reached out to you about potentially coming on the show. I think this was
mhm.
back in like August.
A million
And I
years
remember
ago.
you sending out an email that said, "Well, if you have anything ahead of time that you want me to look at, that you want me to read, feel free to send it along." And I mean, Medusa was still very much like a work in progress at the time. And I was like,
Mm.
she's got a million books, the chances of her looking at it, you never know. But I mean, look what it spiraled into.
I know. I'm now obsessed. Obsession worthy fiction. I think I was actually captivated by the name because I think the file name was like
Mm,
Medusa and that's all it was. And I thought, what on earth
mm.
is this thing? And the opening chapter gripped me because I was like, okay, curiosity piqued what's going on with this dude and his kids. And it just really escalated. I felt like it was escalating along with the characters and all the stuff that they were going through. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I cannot say enough nice things about this. So in the interest of stopping talking so that you could talk now, could you tell us a bit about your work? Because I know you have
Sure.
two books out.
Yep, sure. So, for those that don't know me, my name's Kyle Farnworth. I'm from New Bedford, Massachusetts. I'm a teacher and author. I've got two books that I've written in the past couple of years. You can see them both up over my shoulder right behind me. The first one's Whalers that came out last year, which was a book that was a whole lot about teaching and being a teacher.
Mhm.
Because I felt at the time that I didn't know a single piece of media that I thought depicted what real teaching looked like, felt like. So that was my goal with Whalers. And now, as of a couple of days ago, my second book, Medusa or Men Entombed in Winter, just released. It's a story about a father and his daughters that seem to be running away from this utopian commune that they founded up in the wilderness of northern Maine. It's a really gripping cult literary thriller that super proud of and very happy to talk to you about today.
Awesome. So, as I said before, I as a person need to be very careful not to give spoilers because I very much want to dive into all my favorite bits.
Mhm.
Um, so this book, having read I think it was the forward or the introduction, I can't remember how it was labeled, but you said that it's spun from teaching your students about Perseus and Medusa,
Mm.
and it kind of spiraled from there. And I can kind of see where that sort of progression to this end story actually ended up. But could you tell us a little bit about the sort of the moment of conception to the finished product that we have? Like, what kind of journey did you go on to tell this story the way it
Yeah.
ended up today?
Yeah, I think when I finished Whalers, there's a long period of time that goes by from the time that you finish writing a first draft of a book to when it's published. And I think it
Mhm,
was sometime in between when I had finished writing it and before it was published that I needed another project. And I've always been really interested in cults and cult dynamics.
mm,
Um, and I started writing that first chapter, the one that you referenced about Peter and his daughters are at a diner getting breakfast, and they've clearly had some traumatic experience that they're running away from.
mhm,
Um, and at the time, I wasn't sure exactly what that traumatic experience looked like. But like
mm,
you mentioned, I was teaching my sixth graders Perseus and Medusa at the time, and they were fascinated by it, asking me a million questions about Medusa. And
mhm,
I had stumbled upon some of the myths, like Ovid's Metamorphosis, right, talking
mm,
about her more as like a victim of the people around her than being a monster. And I thought, you know what, that's really interesting. The idea of freezing men to stone, but maybe the men she freezes to stone, she does it in her cult that she forms, and
Mm,
I just ran with it from there. So when I started writing that second chapter and he meets a girl named Medi, that's
mhm.
that was the first time that I really thought to myself, like, "You know, I got something really good here that I could run with."
That's very exciting. That feeling is unmatched. I really do believe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the
Mhm,
moment where the light bulb finally clicks and
mhm,
you've got all of a sudden it goes from, I don't know what chapter 2 is gonna be about to, I think I got 35 chapters here in the back
mhm,
of my head that I gotta get down on paper, and ultimately, I wrote this book really quickly because it just all kinda spiraled right out of me as soon as that
mhm.
initial idea really clicked.
Yeah, it's very easy to let yourself get carried away when you get excited, and I noticed from that forward, is it a forward? I didn't check.
I called it an author's note.
The author's note,
I
and also your
kinda
interview with
think author's
Jessica
note is cool.
yesterday.
Yes.
You're a pantser, which I appreciate. I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, you give me hope." You give me hope as somebody that's, like, plotting either,
I
but
don't
you're
wanna get
so
like,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't wanna bash outliners because, like, I commend you if anybody can outline an entire book, like, shout out to I cannot do that.
Yeah.
And
No,
for
I
me, I
can't.
always feel like once I start doing an outline, I think to myself, like, "I might change this whole thing, and maybe I should just start writing the thing," and then I kinda pants my way through it
Mhm,
when I mean, a lot of times I don't know what the next chapter is gonna be, but, I just go on instinct. What would be the best
mhm,
chapter 3? And then I
mhm.
write the best chapter 3 I can until I got a book in front of me.
I think easier said than done, but I
Mm,
think some people need that outline because they need the structure, they need to know where the story's going. But I totally agree with you. I think it's you either said it in the book or in your interview yesterday that, restricting that creativity, I personally find that to stunt my desire to carry on writing the thing because
yeah.
then it becomes like a chore and I have to fulfill that criteria in order to finish the book. But something that somebody told me a little while ago that's really stuck with me is just don't expect perfection on that first draft. If you, as long as you get the story down, you can do tons of work to get it to where it needs to be. But I mean, I've overworked my first like 2 or 3 chapters, and they're going to be like the most edited parts of my book because I keep
Yeah,
going back
yeah.
to it.
Well,
But as soon as you kind of let go of that a little bit and just
yeah.
let it come out, then
I I
it's
always say
yeah,
I always say you just gotta make it exist, right?
yeah,
You can't you don't you can't fine tune it and edit it and craft it and make it perfect unless you have something to craft to begin with, and,
mhm,
like, I can attest, first draft of Medusa was probably 70,000 words or
mhm,
so, and then a
yeah,
rewrite bumped it up to 90, and then some editing brought it and, I think without that initial 70,000 words, you can't get to a final product.
mm. No, I agree, and it's everybody's different, and I'm glad that that works for you. But it really
Mm,
gives me hope that us pantsers have a chance of creating something really, really, really special. So this, you're sort of headlining this as a literary cult thriller,
mhm.
and you've said, I think you said earlier, that you have an interest in cults, and I do as well. I find them endlessly fascinating. So you said in your interview yesterday that you watched a bunch of documentaries on Netflix about cults. Did
Mhm.
you dive into the psychology of those who kind of fall for successful cult leaders?
Oh, definitely. I think, like, in my documentary binges, right,
Mhm,
obviously, the through line that runs through all of them is the individual, right? The
mhm,
individual that gets caught in the web of whatever. It could be Waco, it could be Synanon, it could be over in Oregon in the wild, wild country. But
mhm,
what you're really looking at is what causes the individual to get caught up in that cycle or get caught up in that cult. Um,
mhm,
and I took a lot of, I found that was the through line where a lot of them had the same ideas in common. If you're thinking about like sense of purpose, if you're thinking about love bombing, if you're thinking about isolation from friends and family,
mhm,
whether it's like a social media cult on Facebook or if it's Waco, which is like the big religious cult,
mhm,
a lot of them, they're using the similar tactics, right?
mhm,
And a part of me when I was putting Medusa together was I definitely wanted to tap into some of those, like
mhm,
the isolation from friends and family. But at
mhm,
the same time, I also wanted to turn some of them on their head where like in the novel, I don't think Medusa ever really like love bombs the men in her cult,
mhm,
by doing the opposite, that's almost how she grabs their attention, right?
Mm,
By acting above and like a goddess above all of the men, that makes them latch onto her even tighter, as
mm,
opposed to her love bombing them like you would typically see.
for
Um,
sure. Mhm,
so that was an interesting thing to play around with as I was writing this, was like, well, how is she going to get the men to stay
mm,
outside of just her charisma and her beauty and her stare?
mm,
Um, and I think the game out in the middle of the woods is a really interesting tactic.
mhm. Oh, I agree. That was one of my favorite elements of this whole story because it felt so animalistic and barbaric and awful because she's like playing into the weaknesses of everybody that's involved.
Mhm.
And she gets to step away and just let them do whatever they're going to do. And she doesn't have to like have any consequences for whatever happens in there because it's up to them. They make that decision themselves
Yeah.
and they live with that consequence. And the prize at the end of it, I think, is fantastic manipulation. Like it's really, really fascinating. So you get this. I know you said about this yesterday, so I know that I can talk about it. But
Mm.
the whole idea of the game is nuts. I really quite enjoyed it because I thought it was going to be some sort of sumo wrestling type situation.
Yeah, it was very much so, like, little peek behind the curtain here. It was
Mm,
very much a mixture of 2 things. So the first is I listened to an incredible, and shout out to my cousin for sending me this, an incredible podcast on, it was called The Sunshine Place, which is all
mhm,
about Synanon, which was a like a drug rehab program that spiraled into a cult.
mhm,
And they played their own The Game, which essentially what they did was they put a bunch of the individuals in a room, broadcasted it on the radio, and they just shouted all the worst insults about each other that they ever possibly could live on the radio for all of the rest of the cult members to hear. So it
hmm,
was about like breaking down barriers. Like if
hmm,
I yell at you that you're a drug addict and you cheated on your husband, it's out in the open. Now it kind of strips identity. So then I
hmm,
was thinking about my own game, and I was like, a game would be very interesting with all of these individuals. And then I just thought of Mr. Beast, like Mr. Beast putting people in a circle and saying, whoever stays in here the longest wins a private jet.
hmm,
And the things that people would do to stay in that circle were very interesting to me. And I
hmm.
kind of took both of those ideas and put them together, and you've got Medusa's game out in the woods.
Interesting.
Mm.
So the prize being um basically like elevation within the community. And I think it was to like spend time with her one on one,
Yeah.
which was like a really special thing.
Yeah, you get to go to the center and spend time with her, and that's
Mhm,
your opportunity to gain status. So,
mhm,
like, for the men that are stuck inside that red circle, it becomes, well, if there are no rules, what am I willing to do to be the last one in this circle? And I think that's
mhm.
a very interesting character study.
Oh, absolutely. And you get to see people kind of like in absolute panic mode and people shutting down and not being able to cope with what the situation itself is. And obviously, it's going to be a bit violent. What I love is, I think it's going to be backwards. What I love, stunning cover, by the way, we'll talk about that in
Yeah,
a second,
cool. Yeah, thank
but
you.
that this looks like blood.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm
totally.
assuming that was intentional
Oh,
because
yeah.
then it leads you to think like, "Oh, was there a murder in the woods and somebody got dragged around?" Like, I
Hmm.
it's definitely thought-provoking, and I love also the fact that it's a wraparound cover, it's my favorite. Um, but yeah, this I don't know if there is, like, specific symbolism or if it's just the way that that all worked out, but, um, it's a beautiful contrast to the snowy setting that we
Yes.
are provided with, and it makes it all the more important, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the idea of being trapped or frozen or
Mhm,
isolated, like that of course runs throughout like cult dynamics, of course,
mhm,
but you shrink the circle even more in the game. So I think that makes it a very striking
mhm,
symbol for isolationism. Um and just the idea of being frozen and stuck in place. Like I did a very interesting conversation with Daniel Roberts of the Dadlit Pod that should be coming out
mhm,
maybe later on this week.
mhm,
But he right out of the gate, he one of the first things he said to me, because he's from Maine, he said, you know,
mm,
there well, interesting that there's no town in Maine called Stillwell, like you just invented this town called Stillwell. And I was like 100%, but that name Stillwell was so important to me because it
mm,
starts with still, right? It's like frozen, stuck,
mhm.
isolated. So all of those dynamics kind of being at play together, that was really important to me. And the red circle is a big part of that.
So I'm interested to know. So you are a teacher. Are you an English teacher?
Sure am.
Okay, that obviously comes across in your writing.
Mm.
But you're so to as an English teacher, I'm assuming that you look at things like symbolism within literary works. Is that something that you sought out to place into this story, or is it something that just came naturally because that's what you look for in other works?
Yeah, I think that's the kind of work that I gravitate to, and I think being an
Mhm,
English teacher is part of it. Like my seventh graders that they read The Outsiders earlier this year, and I just can't stay away from like, oh well, when Ponyboy dyes his hair yellow, like it's not just hair dye. Like that's just kind of the way that my brain works when I
mhm,
read anything from East of Eden to like Dungeon Crawler Carl. Like that, I'm
mhm,
thinking about that.
yeah,
So I think a part of it naturally forces itself into my writing.
mhm,
I think those ideas just kind of find themselves embedded throughout naturally when I draft a first draft.
yeah.
But back to our conversation about like making it exist, when it's done, that first draft, which is probably kind of a piece of crap because I just pantsed my way through it.
Yeah.
At that point, I say like, okay, well, what are some of these symbols that I've already started working with, and where are the
Mhm,
points in the book that I can strengthen them? And I think I go back into it in draft two, and I start thinking about, well, oh, well, you know, what would be really interesting. What if Peter's father, Frank, says something about being stuck and isolated all the way back in
mhm,
chapter one that connects back to the snowy setting of Stillwell. And then I think for me at least, I'm just turning that up to an 11 as much as I can through
mhm,
the drafting process until you get the final copy.
mm. It's I don't normally reread books. I'm definitely going to be rereading this one
Mm,
because there is so much to be had, and because I can't stop thinking about it. Like I can't remember when I read it, but it's been relentless
mm.
since that point. And I'm now like seeking this level of I I'm just going to keep gassing this book up because I love it so much. But I'm seeking this level of quality of storytelling in everything that I read, and there's not enough of it out there. So
I appreciate you saying that.
this
Yeah,
book is
thank
very
you.
special to me now.
Yeah, thank
Uh,
you, thank you.
I feel like it's one of my friends. I
Mm,
really, really like it. Um, so you have a lot of like really heavy stuff in this book.
mm,
There are Medi's experiences in her life have been incredibly traumatic, and she's a very troubled individual. But she's also really quite reserved in like a really weird way. Like
mhm,
she's not what I would. If I were to imagine a charismatic leader, I wouldn't imagine a leader like Medi. She's very quiet and calculated and very serious and not like lovable in that classic way
yeah.
that you would expect from a leader of a cult. Um, why did you make that choice?
Well, I think that like the idea of the intellectual piece of this book, I think
Mm,
we start there, right? Because we
mhm,
think about Medi as a character who, like you mentioned, has gone through a lot of traumatic experiences, and how
mhm,
books have sort of been the crutch to get her out of those experiences.
mhm,
And I think when I picture like that kind of an individual, like you said, that person is fairly introverted and quiet and keeps to
mhm,
themselves. But what I also found very interesting is like with her knowledge and her ability to draw people to her, it's not on like a grand scale. I think there's maybe one moment in the book where she stands up in front of a crowd and like speaks to them, but it's
mhm,
more so on like a one-on-one scale that I found really interesting. Like she has
mhm,
a conversation with Peter, and she can really like manipulate Peter into doing what she wants him to do. She doesn't have to announce it to the entire commune, but
mhm,
when you run a cult like hers, one person at a time, that's more interesting to me as a writer than her standing up on a podium and saying greetings to all of my people. Now,
mhm,
she does start to do that once the radios get put in every house, right?
mhm,
Then it becomes she doesn't even have to be looking at you face to face to tell you what she wants you to hear. And I
mhm.
imagine that as like as more of like a grander scale of the one-on-one conversations that she relies on throughout most of the book.
Mhm. Well, then she's looking at you, she's paying attention to you, you feel special, and
Yeah,
that's why
totally.
you're so connected to that person. So with the radio, so she reads passages
Mm.
over the radio. So there are 3 books that are like required reading for joining this group of people. And I have not read
Correct.
any of them. I've not read any of them.
Oh.
So
Hmm.
why did now I'm going to when my TBR like is shorter than my actual height. um, why did you choose these 3 books or these 3 stories?
It's an interesting question. Yeah, so I think I probably changed those 3 books like 100 times in the drafting
Really?
process, right? Because I
Okay.
thought that those 3 books needed to be like, they needed to fit together in an interesting way.
Mm,
I would say that the 3, for those that don't know, the 3 are The Crucible, which is, Arthur Miller play,
mhm,
The Lottery, which is Shirley Jackson's short story, and then Lord of the Flies, which, like, takes on a life of its own, in part 3 of the book.
mhm,
But all 3 of those, what they all sort of have in common is they all speak to tradition, right? They all
mm,
speak to the way that things are, and how the way that things are don't necessarily need to be that way, right? If you think about like the boys on the island of Lord of the Flies, like they just create their own rules. I think of the Crucible is all about the Salem witch trials, right? And then the Lottery is a short story where, to ensure a good farming season, you stone one of the members of the community to death at the end of the book. I mean, at the end of the short story. So for me,
mhm,
I looked at all those as being about tradition. And in her college years, that's really what like Medi is about, right? She
mm,
wants to change the way things are because she feels like she can do it better. So by
mm,
putting those 3 books as like her manifesto, that
mm,
created a character who, through literature, established to herself that like, I can form my own society and form my own rules. And
mm.
I couldn't find any 3 that, when put together, sort of like accomplished that same goal for me as a writer, right?
Yeah,
Because by her
that
reading
makes
those 3, she's able to communicate her message that, follow me to northern Maine and we'll do our own thing like the boys did on the island. And
mm.
those parallels with Lord of the Flies, I think, kind of run throughout the whole book.
I'd be very interested to read all 3 of them just to enhance the reading experience of this particular book. But it's what I liked is that you chose to start this when they're at college. So they are
Mm,
like old enough to be making decisions for themselves and their own lives and their own futures, but still young enough to be caught up in something exciting and something new and something like a bit punk and a bit different and establish themselves as having like this style of personality. And did was that intentional or did the timeline just fit in?
Well, I think college is a very interesting time in any person's life, right? Because a lot of
Mhm,
the times when you go and live in that freshman year dorm, like for a lot of people, that's their first time on their own, right? It's their first
mhm,
time with that newfound independence. And then, like, with that independence, sometimes comes questionable choices. Like, I know,
mm,
like, in my life when I first went to college, I had a lot of growing up to do, a lot of learning to do, but I know at the time that I genuinely thought I knew everything,
mhm,
and I had a better idea about how to be a human being than anybody in my whole family, right?
mhm,
So it was a very interesting time to place Peter and Medi meeting at college. One, because I think Ivy League school like Dartmouth College brings that level of academia and intellectualism into the
mm,
conversation, but also it's not hard to just get caught in something that you thought you could handle, but you couldn't, right?
mm,
And for Peter, when he first meets her, his brain goes everywhere, right? He's thinking like, "Oh my god, is this like the love at first sight thing that I've heard so much about?" And I think of like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid that like sees this girl in his philosophy class and is, "Oh my god, is this what they've been talking about on the television shows?" And then when you run
mhm,
with it, you're old enough to make your own decisions, but like you
mhm,
said, you're still young enough that like you can make some really bad ones. And I think that's a perfect time frame to really have Medi snatch a hold of all these people and
mm.
drag them up north.
Yeah. I think about Peter sometimes because he was old enough to make his own decisions and he chose to stick with them for an awfully long time. And
Hmm.
he holds on to this idea that everything's going to be normal and that they're going to have this like regular life together as long as they, he follows along and does everything and says yes ma'am or whatever and keeps doing it. And to see him like conflicted throughout parts of the book of like, am I doing the right thing? Yeah, I must be doing the right thing because she's Medi, this is the
Yeah, yeah.
one. And it was really painful to watch him like interact with her and her be just incredibly cold and awful, but then know the
Yeah.
right things to do and say to just keep him on the hook just that little bit. And that was really painful to read.
Oh, totally. And like in regards to Peter's character, like I do view Peter as the kind of guy that I think Peter thought he was doing the right thing. And I think I have a lot of callbacks to like conversations that Peter had with his father about like loyalty and
Mm,
honor and duty. And like there's a great flashback where Peter and his dad talk about how they have to go camping because like Peter's mother wants them to get out of the house and go get some life experience. And
mhm,
Frank essentially tells him, Peter, sometimes in life for the woman that you love, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. And I think
mm,
that's like a life lesson that Peter really sticks with that leads him north. And he starts to think to himself, well, you know what? Like sometimes in life, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable.
mhm,
But on the other hand, like you said, he stuck there for a long time, and I almost feel like the longer you're stuck in a situation like that, the harder it is to get out.
oh,
Because
for sure.
if you've been in this cult for 8 years, it's hard to leave because then you think to yourself, like, I just wasted the last 8 years of my life. And then it
Mhm,
becomes 9 years and 10 years. And then you have a son and you have two daughters and they've grown up in this place. And I think it gets very difficult to leave. So I think from Peter's character, I think when he didn't leave in those first couple of years in Stillwell,
mhm.
that makes him feel even more trapped than he could possibly be.
Well, it also affects your sense of self and your identity. So if your identity is your place in this community, and that's how you've solidified yourself in your life, to then go from like this uh, utopia
Mm,
where everything is how you wanted it to be, or how you were convinced you wanted it to be. What is life going to be like outside that thing? It's like an
yeah,
abusive
yeah,
relationship. Like, who's ever going to love you? Nobody else is going to love you except me. But except it's the community, it's the cult, it's this group of people that you kind of committed your whole life to. And what happens to them if you leave as well? And there must be like a ton of things going on in this guy's head. And you did mention the children, and that was such a that was Paul was so creepy. I did not
mm.
like him. I did not like
It
him. I mean, that
Paul
probably
Paul
was
is
the
very
intention.
much Yeah, Paul's very much like Peter's firstborn son, Paul. He's a product of the environment, right? It's like
Mhm,
when he lives in Stillwell his entire life, and his mother is revered by all of these men in the community, and they look
mhm,
at her like she's a goddess. Well, like Paul's like, I'm the son of the goddess, so like you should be looking at me that same way. And I
mhm,
think all these themes about fatherhood because Medi doesn't allow Peter to take ownership of Paul, to say that Paul is his son, and
mhm,
she argues that the reason she's doing that is to protect him, right?
mhm,
If all of the men in the community aren't sure who the father is, then they're all gonna respect and revere him. And I think
mhm,
when you put those two things together, right, his like lack of a father figure
mhm,
and his mother being looked at like she's a goddess, I think that creates like a real monster. And
mhm.
Ricky Smiley is the character that just kind of like emphasizes that monstrosity.
Their relationship was weird. It
Mm.
was so creepy. It made me feel so uncomfortable every time they were together, and I was just expecting the worst the whole
Yeah.
time. Like, as soon as he was like, "Let me show you the way, child," I was like, "Please
Yeah.
don't, Ricky. I don't like this."
When he teaches him how to shovel, and you're like, "Oh, that's like in," and he's mimicking his every movement. And
Mhm.
like Ricky Smiley that was a very fascinating character to really try to put together.
Yeah, he was a bastard. He
Mhm.
was an absolute bastard. Did you base him on anyone?
So I so Ricky is an interesting person to talk about
Mm,
because I got a lot of like inspirations for Ricky. Like when I first started thinking about his character, I was thinking about like Blood Meridian, and like Judge Holden was like a big influence for it. So like for those that don't know, in Cormac McCarthy's novel Blood Meridian, like the main antagonist is this guy named Judge Holden, who is just like the embodiment and epitome of evil, and he just
Mm,
kind of floats through life, and nobody comments on the fact that like this guy is supernaturally strangely evil.
mm,
And when I started putting together Ricky Smiley, I felt very much like that was sort of the lens that I was going through.
mhm,
And with Ricky, it got to a point where I was having beta readers looking at it, and they were like, "Well, this is such a compelling book, but Ricky Smiley has no redeeming qualities, right? Like he's just evil." And to me, I was like, "That's the whole point. Like Ricky
mhm,
Smiley is not meant to be anybody other than the embodiment of evil, and like this rot that has infested this community, a
mhm,
totally different evil than Medusa is,
mhm,
but." When you open up your doors, right, these
mm,
kind of things start to make their way in.
mhm,
And when I was putting together Ricky, I felt very much that like Ricky needed to be just that physical embodiment of evil and monstrosity
mhm,
that just is able to get away with it because they're so isolated in the middle of the woods in their own community. Like
mhm,
Ricky Smiley could not exist in a normal society, but like
mhm.
he can exist in Medusa's society. And I thought that was very important.
Yeah, I can totally see that, and the idea that this like utopia ideal scenario of a community is going to have its flaws apart from obviously the manipulation from the top. But you say that he couldn't exist in real society. I mean, we see that, and please just yell stop if I say too much. But we see
You're
that
fine.
when they kind of venture outside of Stillwell and
Yeah.
experience outside of the community, and then some shit goes down, and then they absolutely they can just run away and
Hmm.
go back to their little community, which is
Just go
like
right back in their hole.
physically closed off from the rest of the world.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I love the way that you tied the first chapter and the last chapter together. I really I like a flashback moment. That's my favorite when we're
Yeah.
looking at like different periods of time and how everything stitches together. Um, I just loved it. That was really
Well,
good. I did have an
with
unrelated. Oh, sorry.
no, sure. I just with Ricky Smiley, the other
Mm.
feedback that I got about him
Oh
was
yeah,
everybody
sure.
was asking me like about his voice, right? Because I thought that
Mm,
was super important. Like for Ricky, I gave Ricky just a intense like southern dialect where he just says like
mhm,
instead of YOU, it's just YA, and like
mhm,
every word is cut off or hyphenated or whatever. Um, and like for me, it was at the time I was reading with my sixth graders. We were reading Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which is one of my favorite books. If I want to shout out a book to read to anybody in the chat, read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry.
mhm,
But Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry takes place in Mississippi, so the characters have like a real interesting dialect, and it
mm,
made my sixth graders from New England while they were reading it so uncomfortable. Right, like when we would
mm,
read it in class, they were like, "Just I can't get a grip on these words. Like, wait, what are
mm,
they saying?" And it was they had a really hard time with it. And if
mm,
I gave Ricky Smiley just this like interesting dialect where he talks completely differently than everybody else does, I was really just trying to blow up the otherworldliness of him and also like that uncomfortability. Like I wanted readers to be like pausing when they got to his dialogue because it was so weird and
mhm,
strange and different. Just as I felt that to be a very interesting way of like highlighting this guy's weird and he's
mhm.
important and he's going to make you uncomfortable like right from the first words he says on the page. So
Interesting.
that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think that was a really good choice because it definitely was a challenge to read
Yeah, it's
what he
jarring,
had to
right?
say.
Like
Yeah.
it really kind of like it grabs a hold of you like while you're reading his dialogue when you're like, wait, he's not pronouncing any of his words,
Mhm,
and that's so different than anybody else talks in the novel, and that really kind of like shows his like devilishness, I think,
mm.
just because it is so strange and uncomfortable.
Because it makes you question his intelligence, but then he does something really, 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 really sneaky and calculated, and you
Hmm.
think, "Oh, you sly dog." But it is definitely an interesting, like, juxtaposition with the levels of, like, literary intelligence that, like, Mehdi has, for example, and that she trusts this dude to
Yeah.
hang around with her prodigy child, and she's totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was weird. She doesn't strike me as like a motherly mother.
No.
Definitely tools rather than children. Yeah, there was a question that I wanted to ask that I have on my list of things to talk about that's totally unrelated to the book.
Sure.
But it's about you and your writing, sort
Mm.
of, not really. So you were talking with Jessica yesterday, and you said that you can sit in a coffee shop and read, and write with music going on that has actual lyrics. And you
Sure.
said that you
Yeah.
liked indie rock.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know what your favorite indie rock bands are.
Oh,
Because I'm
so
nosy.
yeah, great. So, my favorite band of all time by a mile is the Arctic Monkeys.
Yes, I was hoping it was going to be.
Yeah, I am an Arctic Monkeys diehard. Their ability to change their sound with every album, and
Mhm,
them not being afraid to be like, yeah, we made AM and it was
mhm,
a incredible rock and roll album and people are dying for it, so we're going to give a piano led like club loungy vibe album for the next one,
mhm,
just as like a look what I can do kind of a thing. And I
mhm.
appreciate that about them so much. So Arctic Monkeys, that's my number one by a mile.
Approved.
um yeah, really like Snail Mail. I don't know if you ever listen to Snail Mail.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, she's like just a female indie rock and roll.
No.
She's fantastic. Mountain Joy, I love. Uh, the big Dave Matthews Band guy. That's my little that's my niche category of music right there.
Nice.
Mm.
I just wanted to ask because I was being nosy.
I'll talk. I mean, if you want, we can change that. This can become an Arctic Monkeys podcast if you want. We'll talk Arctic Monkeys. How much time do we have? I'll do
as long
Arctic
as you
Monkeys
like.
for the next half hour if you
As,
want.
as long as you like.
Or we can go back to Medusa. Either or. I'm totally fine with.
Oh, let's flip between the two.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I think there may be some issues with the chats coming through. So if you're watching on Twitter or YouTube, please put something in the chat so I know that things are coming through. Because I had an issue with Instagram not coming through. I don't think it's streaming properly on there. But just if you're watching, feel free to ask questions and stuff in the chat. Because I see you lurking there, you creepies.
Yeah.
So when I read this initially, it was a PDF, and you have since obviously formatted it into this novel version, and it's in 3 different sections. I love the way that it's split up. Did you? Why did you choose to structure it that way?
Well, I mean, for me, the 3-act play is like
Mm,
the classic, right? You know, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Like for me, Act 1, well, Part 1 in this novel, feels very much like the anticipation, right?
mhm,
Where it's building and it's building and it's building, and then when you get to Part 2 is the escalation,
mhm,
and then Part 3 is the explosion, the way that I
mhm.
view it.
Okay.
And I think that's not dissimilar to a lot of novels, that a lot of plays, right? If you think about the 3-act play.
Mhm,
But also for me, I found it very interesting to structure it by the SFC, right? Like
mhm,
Part 1 is called the Students for Fundamental Change.
mhm,
And then Part 2 is called the Sustainable Futures Collective, because like that's how the cult evolves. And then when you get to Part 3, which I call like the Sanctuary for the Chosen, that's when things are officially out of control,
mhm,
right? And I think the titles of all 3 parts
mhm,
really emphasize that growing and building and escalation,
mhm,
ultimately until Part 3, when like everything kind of crashes together.
mm,
um so I think that came, like I said, I pants my novels, so I think
mhm.
that 3-act structure came just kind of instinctually, naturally.
Okay.
But then the more that I looked back at it, the more I felt like that was the right way to go.
Well, that's fair. Because you've you've used chapter and then the number of the chapter, but at the start of each of these sections, I'm trying to find one. You have
Yeah.
like a list of the most prominent things that happen within that story, um,
Yes. Good. Yeah.
which I find intriguing. I quite like that as an addition, as an experience for this book, because you're kind of
Yeah.
like, well, what the hell does that mean? What is going to happen? Let me read that.
Yeah, that's done for 2 reasons. One,
Mm,
just, that's a little bit me being cheeky, right? Where I'm like, "A birthday party," and you're like, "Oh,
mm.
there's a birthday party," but then, like,
Oh,
the birthday
cute.
party for those that have read the book, is like a very brutal experience for the birthday boy. So one, it was a way of kind of like flipping things on their head, right? A
Mhm.
fireworks show is another great example. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, that sounds like very happy, and I'm looking forward to the fireworks show. And then when
Mhm.
you get to it in the book, like it's like mortifying. But I'd also say like that's a little. I borrowed that a little bit from um, like back to Blood Meridian, right? Cormac
Mhm.
McCarthy. In Blood Meridian, every chapter starts with just like 5 things that happen in the chapter, right? But
Hmm.
they're vague
Interesting.
enough that like you're not really sure exactly what they mean, right? Like a
Mhm.
long trip through the desert or something along those lines. But McCarthy does that in Blood Meridian with every chapter. So I
Mhm.
kind of took it and kind of spun it where I wanted to do it with all of the parts, because I
Mhm.
think doing it with all of the chapters, I think is like I love the idea like great artists steal, right? Like I wasn't just going to steal right from his book, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I thought this would be very interesting to kind of flip things on their head. A hunting party, like,
Mhm.
oh, there's a hunting party is going to be in this part, and then when you get to it, you kind of see what I mean.
Yeah. Cool. I like it. No, I think it's a cool addition.
Yeah.
And I love being misled as a reader to
Well,
thinking it's going to be something else.
yeah, I think I love subverting expectations, right? Like
Mhm.
I think some of the best reading experiences that I've had, at least, is when I think a book is going to be one thing and it turns out to be something entirely different.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's hard in today's day and age when everything's on
Yeah.
the internet. Like you could just go to the Wikipedia page and figure out what a book's about. Like it's hard to really surprise readers.
Mm.
I think by having these little messages at the start of each part of this book, that's my own way of kind of keeping you on your toes as a
Mm.
reader, which I think kind of adds to the experience.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So
Yeah.
going back to your career, having I think you said yesterday have you been teaching for like 8, 10 years, something like that?
Yeah, like 10 years. Yeah.
About that. So a while. Is there something or are there any skills that you feel that all writers of fiction should make sure that they have in order to tell like an effective story?
Yeah. I mean, well, like to me, I think tension is one of the more important pieces that you need
Mhm.
to understand as an author. Because I think a good book needs to raise tension, it needs to deplete tension. You need to know when to scale the tension back, because I don't know if you're a How I Met Your Mother person, but I think of like Barney Stinson's Pump Up Mix, where he's like, every song needs to build and build. Like books don't work that way. You need to know when to like pull it back.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a lot of that, I mean, a lot of that, at least for me, is like instinctual. Like I feel like I've read a lot of books in my life, and I usually, as I'm writing it out, I can think to myself, like, okay, now would be a good time to like do an introspective chapter about Brandon Calhoun trying to fit
Mhm.
in the community because we've raised the stakes so much to this point.
Mhm.
So I think tension is definitely really important. But like one thing that I said in one of my interviews this week, I
Mhm.
really think that it's just you just need to tell a good story. And I think good stories are there's a million ways to tell a great story. Right?
Mhm.
You can tell a full scale epic like the Odyssey, or you can tell a 95-page parable like John Steinbeck's The Pearl, right?
Mhm.
Like it doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be small, but like great stories are great stories, and people have been telling and reading great stories from the beginning of time. So I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of different ways to do that.
For sure.
I have my way that I like to.
Mhm. Which is working.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
So, something a bit different that's going to happen during this show today is that we have somebody lurking in the background, who I'm gonna she's behind you. No, I've put her behind your bookcase and she's gonna come out and creep on you. So we have Sarah Arnu sat backstage at the moment, and I'm gonna bring her on in a second because she has also read an advanced copy of Medusa, or Men Entombed in Winter. I'm gonna pop the QR code up for this so that you guys can see how gorgeous this cover is. There is also a link to Kyle's website and where to buy both of these books as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Sarah. If she could wave at me and let me know that she's ready, that'd be great. Okay, I'm going to bring her on now. So welcome. to the floor.
Hello,
Sarah
hello.
Arnu. How you doing?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I knew this was happening and I still was like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? Um, just completely forgot what we were doing.
Well, the floor is yours if you would like to ask this author any questions.
I have so many questions. I'm going to be really annoying, but I want to tell a little story about reading the book first, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
That's
Yeah, go
nice.
ahead.
So I had the arc. I didn't read the arc straight away. And Saffron was like, you've got to read it. You've got to read it. You've got to read it. I was like, fine. Okay, I'll read it. But the week that I read it, I was so I'm chronically ill. I was having some heart issues, so I was trialing a medical device to track my blood pressure and my heart rate and everything.
Mm.
And at one point, I got so into the book, I could not stop reading it. And then the device I was trialing got really upset, and it started like beeping and like alerting, and it was like, "Go to the hospital, go to the hospital." And it got to the point I had to take a medically like sanctioned break from reading the book until my blood pressure came down to like a normal amount.
Well,
So
I apologize for doing that to you, but
it's
hope
all
you
right.
enjoyed
I
it.
do forgive you. But it wasn't. It was a bizarre experience. I was like, yeah, this is probably what it feels like for them in the book.
Mm.
That's hilarious.
It's always me. Always weird things happen to me. I've got a few questions. I hope that's okay. I'm going to finish with my Womble question. I know you've been revising your Wombles.
Oh, I'm prepared.
Okay. I'm going to start with normal questions first.
Sure.
Um, I've got a whole list. So the 1st of March is quite a pivotal date in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering, did you ever consider releasing Medusa on the 1st of March, or was it just that it just didn't happen that way?
Yeah, so the 1st of March is like you said, it's very important in this book, and I want to shout out my editor, right? Jenna Love Schrader was she's been my editor for both Whalers and Medusa. It was her idea to have Paul born on the 1st of March as being like spring equinox and a breaking of winter. So total shout out to her for that incredible idea. I did have an idea of releasing it on the 1st of March, but as I was thinking about when I wanted to release it, I really wanted it to be especially cold. And somehow, some way, I invited a historic blizzard to the East Coast. We got 37 inches of snow the day that this book was released. I think I'm partly responsible for that. So a little part of me definitely thought about having it release on that day. But with the idea of the snowfall in Men Entombed in winter, I was thinking to myself, I want to make sure that it's cold. I want to make sure that, and I thought late February kind of met my timeline a little bit better. So, yeah, thoughts was there, but
Probably
releasing it,
met it more than you expected.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. I'm sure the state will forgive you.
I'm hoping, man. My street still isn't plowed. We've been grinding around here.
Sometimes you can manifest too hard. Did you know that?
I know. I don't have a vision board or anything, but somehow, some way, I still
Don't
we beat the
don't
blizzard of '78.
don't make one. You'd be too powerful.
I know. I'm gonna try not to. No guarantees though.
No guarantee. I think I read somewhere, or maybe I heard it in one of your interviews. I might be completely making this up, so if I am, shout at me. But that you were influenced by The Secret History.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I did really feel that throughout the book. Did you like set out to write a book that was influenced by dark academia at all, or was it just straight like cult?
So yeah, so Secret History was a huge influence for me. I love that book so much, and I think like the dark academia piece. Yes, I don't know if I set out at the beginning to write a dark academia book, but I think that naturally embedded itself with like the college themes and the academia and the intellectualism. It kind of manifested itself. But really, what I loved so much about the Secret History was the Secret History feels like you feel very trapped reading that book, right? Like Donna Tartt in The Secret History has 8 chapters, and the book is like 800 and something pages long. So like every chapter is incredibly long, and your reading experience while you're going through the book feels you feel like you're trapped inside the pages. And I tried very much to make Medusa feel like a similar way, right? Like I wanted my readers to also have that experience of like being stuck behind the gates of a cult. So I think more so my influence comes on more like the structure and the feel and the tone than necessarily like the genre, if that makes sense.
I definitely got like the claustrophobic
Mm.
aspects with Medusa as well. It feels wider, but it's still very claustrophobic in itself.
Well, yeah, and I liked like we talked a little bit about the three parts, right? When
Mm.
you by the time you get to part three, like all of those chapters are short and fast and cliffhangery, and you really like spiral to the end. At least that's kind of the vibe that I was trying to go for, with the fact that like the parts one and two take place over 15 years. Part three is one day, right? So it feels very fast moving. Um, I think I got a little bit of that from the Secret History for sure.
I was going to ask this question. I wasn't sure if it was too like spoilery, but we've kind of already discussed it. I say
Hmm.
we, like I was involved. I wasn't
No,
involved.
You were there.
I was
you were there.
also there.
We knew you were there.
Yeah.
Nobody else did though. It was a big
That
secret.
that sounds creepy.
Mm.
Like I'm hidden behind everyone's bookshelves. Like, hello. Why is the scariest thing about Medi that she's such a boy mum? In like a derogatory way.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting piece, right? I love one of my favorite scenes, right, is her and Peter in bed when she has decided that she wants to have another child, and Peter's her means of getting one, right? And they have a very interesting back and forth where Peter asks her like, well, what would you want? And she was like, well, what would you want? He says, oh, I would love a daughter. She's going to be just like my mom. And Medi's like, I want a son to like protect my firstborn, and they'll have each other's backs forever. And it's like a very creepy way to look at like your child, right? Like I want a son just so that my firstborn has like a first lieutenant and nobody can like come and take over Stillwell when I'm gone.
Mm.
And that
Very
aspect of
fair and
her,
spare, isn't it?
yeah, totally. Yeah. I felt that part of her was that part of her creeped me out, and I wrote it. You know what I mean?
Is she your favorite character? She must have been so fascinating to write. She's the kind of character who I'm like, I am fascinated by you, but you can stay in the book and you're not coming
Yeah.
out. Like,
Yeah. She's so much like the catalyst. Like she drives this book entirely, right?
Mhm.
It's hard. Like for me, I love the sheriff. Like I think the sheriff is like such a
Mm.
fun character to write about. I love Carver, the old priest. He was such a fun character to explore. Even like Ricky Smiley is such like a devastating human being. He's such an awful person, but in a way, it's like this book would not be this book without Ricky Smiley.
Mhm.
So like every time he's on the page, I feel like your blood pressure goes up a couple of beats just when you see the name
tell
there.
me
You're like,
about
oh no, he's back, right? And
Mhm.
for me, that's like that was such an interesting vehicle to use while I was putting this together. Like, if I bring Ricky Smiley back and he just like growls at somebody, I know my readers are going to know that like something really bad is about to happen just because like this guy is on the page. So hard to pick it's like picking a favorite child, right? Like I
Mhm.
Medusa is so much fun, Ricky's so much fun, but then obviously like the characters that offset them, like Frank and Brandon and Carver and Edith, like the ones that are on like the quote unquote side of good, like those were fun to explore as well.
and all the characters are so like endearing in their own ways
Mm,
because like I could not stand Ricky Smiley,
mm,
but it would not have been the same book without him.
Mhm.
yeah.
It needed him there. And like all of them, I was so attached to them. All of Frank, you don't really know Frank to a
Yeah.
great extent, but I was immediately like, yeah, I would die for you. Like,
Mhm. Yeah. Just living alone with his dog on the house
yeah,
barge. Like I'd love like
Living
that,
the dream,
living the
honestly.
dream, right? Like
yeah.
this book felt very much for me like it's the white and the yellow. Like you want to talk about like symbolism in this book. Like it's like
Mhm.
the white is the snow and the purity, but then like there's this yellow rot that's like infesting this town. And like there are characters that are on one side or the other, right? So I felt very much like just putting those characters at odds with one another, where like Frank is such an endearing father figure to Peter, but then you have Ricky Smiley, who is this like evil father figure to Paul, and like playing those things right next to each other. That's really like thematically where I was trying to go with most of this book.
Yeah, I mean, I love this book. I loved it so much. I recommend it to everyone.
I appreciate that very much.
I
Thank you.
was just in Sweden with a group of about 20 people, and I'm doing an MA in creative practice, so we're all creators. We're all trying to like do our own thing. And I was supposed to be selling my own book, and instead I was like, "Read Medusa, it's so good. It's like the best book I've read."
Yeah,
And they were like,
nice.
"Okay, but like this isn't how you sell your own books, Sarah." But I told everyone to buy it, so if they haven't, I'm gonna go and find them all.
Yeah,
And beat them up.
Kick them in the butt and send them.
Yeah,
say,
be like,
get on
"Do
Amazon. There's a
What are you
QR.
doing?
There's no excuse. There's a QR code right on the screen. There's like
Exactly.
there's no excuse.
Do it
And a
now.
link in
So
the
easy. It's right
description.
there. Link in the description. If you're
And
not technologically savvy and you need a link to click on, it's
and
right
if it
there.
really comes to it, I will come to your house and make you buy it.
Yeah, Sarah will click all the buttons and
Yeah, don't mess with
hold
her.
you hostage
Yeah,
till you
Yes.
buy it.
I feel like it's a really simple hostage situation, though. Like, I'm not asking for a lot.
No, I think this is quite reasonable. You
I'm
get a
not
book
even
you're
asking
gonna
you
like.
to buy my book.
Kidnappers make
Kyle's book.
demands far greater than buy this book on Amazon. So
Yeah.
I think you're
I'm
totally in
slightly
your
worried
right.
that I've been inducted into the cult, and that doesn't bode very well for me.
Once it grabs hold of you, it's hard to let go.
Yeah.
There
She's
was
gonna kick me out.
there were like 3 main things that I was thinking about doing when I was growing up. One of them, truck driver, because I thought that would be cool. The other one, a chef. I did that. And if all else would have failed, I was going to try and be a cult leader. So I'm glad we didn't have to get there, because it
Isn't
looks
that
like
what you're
a whole
doing
hassle.
now?
Well, sorry?
You get
Isn't that what you're doing now?
Not on
you've got
purpose.
you've got your booklings, right? You got your own little you got your
I
own little
do.
you got your people,
Got the
right? Now you
book
just got to move them all
goblins
to the
and
wilderness.
Sif and
Yeah. I don't know if I'll do that, because that sounds like a lot of hassle. I prefer this like online thing where I don't have to actually interact with people and I can just leave by clicking a button and go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going through a tunnel." I think there is an issue with the chat because I've had a few people send me messages saying that they can't put things in the chat. So if you wanted to ask Kyle any questions, leave a comment in this video and I'll let him know if you do comment, and then you can interact after this. But I'm sorry if you have been trying to comment, or if I've not been able to put it on the screen in any way, it's because they're not coming through. But if you're here watching this right now, if it's the recorded version or this live version, I so appreciate you being here today, and thank you for coming and learning about this book. So I just wanted to address that in case anyone's concerned.
Can we just start the rumor that there was so many people in the chat that we just like overwhelmed it with comments and we broke it and shut it down, and that's why it's not working? Let's just run with that.
I hate it
Yeah,
when
let's
that
cut that
happens.
out of this live show and say we just got overwhelmed. The server
Overwhelmed.
shit itself.
Totally.
YouTube, they're messaging me saying, "How is
Yeah.
this so popular?" And I'm
Exactly.
like, "I don't know, cult personality, isn't it?"
Totally.
Oh my goodness! Did you have any other questions, Sarah?
I have one other question. It's the
question.
Womble question.
Oh my goodness!
Okay. I
I'm
like to
excited.
personalize my Womble questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Very sweet.
Okay. Which Womble do you think would be most likely to have been taken in by Mehdi and then become part of the cult?
It's a really interesting question. I have to be honest. I have the entire Womble Wikipedia page here highlighted. I've gone through it a couple of times, but I'm just gonna make sure. I don't want to give a wrong
amazing.
answer, so I'm gonna flip to the characters section of the Wikipedia page.
This is the best episode of Booked ever.
I agree. What the fuck is happening? I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
I mean,
but for Womble.
or I mean, I could go a couple of different ways, right? I could say that like Bungo, who's very over enthusiastic and bossy, but I wonder if he'd be almost too bossy. I don't know if he'd lean towards the bossiness or the because over enthusiastic, boom, he's in Stillwell. Bossy, not quite sure.
He's kicked out.
He's kicked out. I think I think like Orinoco, who loves sleep and food, like Stillwell would be a great place for a person like that. But I think I'm gonna have to go with Bungo. I think he's gonna be. I think he would be up there, first lieutenant, probably on the side of Ricky Smiley.
Oh, that's terrifying. I thought
Yeah.
Wellington would be very easily indoctrinated.
Yeah, I think Mehdi would play on Wellington's like insecurities, right? Yeah, his insecurities, his absent-mindedness. I think she
Wellington's
would
not getting
definitely.
very far up the chain
Yeah,
of command, though.
I think that's a Brandon Calhoun if I've ever seen
Yeah,
one. Right? Yeah, totally.
This has
there
probably
but not
been the
accepted.
highlight of my day.
Mm.
It's the highlight of my day.
So
I feel like I'm
so
losing my
brilliant.
mind. It's amazing.
But yeah,
Look,
but the bad news is I'm out of printer ink now, but that's okay. We can get more printer
I'm
ink.
sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's a long Wikipedia page. It's longer than I expected. But I do.
I just,
Best thing I've
I've got
ever
my
experienced.
highlights.
that is amazing. You're definitely a
Proper
teacher.
teacher.
Oh, totally. Oh,
That's
you better believe I've got my highlighters. I'm annotating the text. That's what I do. I'm an English teacher.
You know, Saffron, I know you're going to ask Kyle this, but I think I've just reached my level of success.
Oh, that's really nice.
Somebody has prepared for the wobble question.
Oh,
You've
yeah.
named it, Sarah.
I do my
I've
homework.
made it. I'm done. I don't need to do anything else now. I'm done. No more books for me.
While I have you both here at the same time, because I know that it's really late where you are, Sarah, so I'll tuck you away behind your bookshelf in a second. Do you think at the age that you would have been at college when Mehdi was there, do you think either of you individually would have followed her?
I think I would have been terrified of her and tried to have taken like a wide berth.
Mm.
But I also went to a very small university. It had about 9,000 students. So she definitely would have been like very well known, I think.
Yeah.
And it would have been one of those stay away from her. She's a nightmare sort of situations.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't have wanted me anyway. So
Oh yeah.
I think for me, I went to my first round. I went to a big school, and I think when I was 18, 19, I think I would have done a lot to fit in, right? I think I was very insecure, and I wanted people to like me, and I think if the beautiful girl with the big green eyes was like, "Hey, I think you're awesome. Let's like start our own society," I might have said, "Let's get in the car and go right now."
I assume that might be your answer, but I thought I'd just get it on the record in case we invent a time machine, or if I need to start a cult in the past, who I need to get as my leader.
Yeah, I'm following.
Yeah, awesome. Good to know. Good to know. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming in and asking some questions. I just wanted to show how many other people like this book, and you should go read it if you're watching this. Okay.
Yeah, or I'm going to come to your house and bother you with womble questions until you buy it.
Yeah,
correct.
She will. She'll do it. She'll do it.
Well, I don't
you,
have anything to do. So,
well, thank you so much, Sarah. I'm going to put you behind the bookshelf now.
I really enjoyed it.
I'll see you later.
Bye.
She's back behind the bookshelf. I don't know if
that was fun. I'm glad she hopped on and joined. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was nice. So yeah, this I can't say enough good things about this book. There are 2 questions that I usually ask people at the end of every show. And the first one is, what does success look like to you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I mean, when I think about what success is, my first thought is like the Bob Dylan quote, right? Where it's like, success is waking up in the morning, going to bed at night, and in between, like doing whatever it is you want to do. Like, I think that's a really easy way to look at success. And I would imagine that a lot of the people that you have on here, I would imagine they're all saying like, if success to me is being able to quit my job and write full time. I'm sure that's like a very popular answer. To me, I don't know. To me, I kind of feel like I'm already pretty successful with like where I'm at in my life. I really just wanted to be a published author, and I didn't really care how it looked. I had a very, very, very interesting conversation with Dan Roberts of the Dad Lit Pod about self-publishing, right? Because he's very interested in the business, right? In agents, in Curie letters, in getting Simon and Schuster to publish your book for you. And he was fascinated by me because I essentially told him that I don't really feel like I need like the validation of a literary agent to say like I'm going to sell your book to HarperCollins. Like I'm very confident that Medusa and Whalers are both like really really good books, and people will read them whether it's got my name on it or it says Penguin. So I mean, success for me, I kind of feel like I'm already at it. I've got a nice job. I've got a job where I have the time to write, which is also incredibly important to me, right? Like we get vacations, and I have summer vacation, and we just had a 37-inch blizzard that hit, and school shut down for 4 days, and I'm able to come on your show and promote my book, and so to me, that's success already right there, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually one of the most common answers that people give is something along the lines of like, just being able to get my book out there, and have at least one person like it. That's like the benchmark that a lot of people actually have. I think people or authors, when I ask them this question, if you're an author that I'm going to be interviewing, you're allowed to not be humble. That's fine. You don't have to be humble all the time. If your actual idea of success is like selling X amount of books or getting signed or whatever the thing is, like be honest about it. Be honest about your dreams and your hopes and the things that you want to achieve in your life. Because if you start talking about stuff like it's going to happen and having the confidence that it's going to happen, you're going to inadvertently make the choices that are the right choices to get you to that point. So be honest about your idea of success. And
I'm a big believer that like anything doing is worth overdoing, right? So if like you're gonna write a book, you might as well write like the best possible book you can. And like for me, I set up four shows over the course of like what I'm championing as like Medusa Week. Like I told myself like I'm gonna have posters for both of my books in the back. I'm gonna have a whiteboard where I'm gonna write like funny things on. I'm gonna wheel in my library in the back. I have my microphone and like a nice webcam, because like why am I gonna come here and do it unless I'm gonna put 100% of myself into it?
Yeah.
And I think if you do that for long enough, like you're gonna pay dividends down the road, right? If you just put 100% of yourself into anything, you never know where it could lead you. So we'll see.
Well, my memory is absolutely terrible. And I think it was in your interview yesterday. You said something along the lines of like, people aren't going to want to read your book if you aren't saying it's the best thing ever. Like there's a big difference between having confidence and celebrating and championing your work, your hard work that you've put in. There's a big difference between that and saying like, my book's the best thing that you've ever read and it's better than yours and you're terrible. Like there are some authors that will do that. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for anybody. But if you're like, no, this thing is really good, I assure you my love and passion is in between these pages, people are going to pick up on that, and they're going to jive with that.
Yeah, and I think believing in yourself, it doesn't necessarily mean that you got to put other books down or anything like that, but like for me, like that came from a writers conference that I went to when we talked about marketing. And like part of the reasons why I reached out so early to you is because the whole idea for marketing that they said was like people buy books that people that they trust won't stop talking about. And like I view you as like that kind of person on X that like people trust your opinion. Right. You've done so much like for the indie author community. Like if I've got you saying that this book is really good, like that's the best marketing that I can have. But the only way to do that is for me as an author to believe in it and to reach out to you and to reach out to Josh and to reach out to Dan and Jess and say, hey, I've got this book that I wrote that's really good. You should definitely read it. And if you don't believe that, then why would anybody else?
Yeah. No, I agree. I wish that more authors or writers, whether they're going to publish their stuff or not, I wish more of them had more confidence in themselves as storytellers, because I can see so much potential in so many people that are just like, yeah, it's okay. You know, not a lot of people read my stuff or whatever. And I'm like, well, not, you're like Eeyore. Do something, like get me excited about what you've got to tell me. And
yeah, it's so interesting because like I feel like authors are mostly introverted individuals who like it's tough to really put yourself out there. And like for me, it's so interesting because like for me being a teacher, I think teaching is the opposite. I think teachers are predominantly like extroverted and love people
Yeah.
and like in between class periods are coming to my room and knocking on my door and being like, hey, how was first period? And like me, a lot of times I'm like, I just need 15 minutes to myself to like recharge my batteries. I'll
Yeah.
come find you when I'm ready.
Mhm.
Right. And I think like as a writer, I think that introversion sometimes gets in the way for some
Yeah.
people where they're like, you can read it if you want to, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, like it you can read it like if you're looking for something to read, you can read it, but don't feel pressured like you have to. When a lot of times it's what that book needs is for you to be like, this book is going to blow your mind.
Mm.
You need to get it right now.
Yeah. This is worth putting on the top of your pile.
Totally. Yeah.
And this is, by the way, I know that it's backwards, but you can see it the right way on the screen. It's a good read, so fucking read it. Otherwise, I'm not going to come to your house because I'm an introvert. Really, I pretend to be an extrovert for this, but after this, I will be staring at the wall for a number of hours until I feel okay again. But so the last question that I always ask people is: so I know from listening to a previous interview of yours that you were writing from very young, but then you kind of stopped and then you started taking it really seriously in terms of like wanting to write something to publish in the last few years. If you were to go way back to the youngest that you ever were and you started writing, if you could give yourself any advice, what advice would you give?
Oh, what a great question. So I feel like I got it. Can I just say you ask wonderful questions, by the way. Just shout out to you for great question.
I'm very nosy.
Yeah. No, it's like if I go way, so it's tough because I think of myself as a writer from like when I was 6 years old. Like I told this story the other day. My parents one Christmas got me one of those like published by mail kits where it was like you drew a picture and you wrote one line and then you sent it off and then they mailed you back like a hardcover little book. And like I wrote one about me and my friends who all own dinosaurs and it made us really good at basketball. Like that was my first ever book. Shout out to the book was called Our Dinosaurs. I think it was published in like 1997. You can find it on my Instagram if you really want to go. You know those little highlights at the top of your. You can go read Our Dinosaurs on my Instagram.
I'm gonna do that straight after this.
If you don't want to read Medusa, read Our Dinosaurs, and that will convince you that like you got to read Medusa.
Okay.
But I digress. So going back to 6-year-old Kyle, I think if I was to go to talk to 6-year-old Kyle, I would say the only thing that you could do is just keep writing, right? Like that's the only advice because writing a book is hard, but like the next book is a little easier and the next book is a little easier. And I feel like the earlier in your life that you start trying to tackle this medium, the easier it gets as you move forward. Like you learn all the pitfalls.
Yeah.
But I like to think like I kind of was already doing that. But if I was to go back to like college Kyle, who like really started taking like being a novelist seriously before I kind of abandoned it for teaching, I would tell that Kyle to just don't worry about what anybody has to say about anything that you write and just write it and publish it. And then it doesn't belong to you anymore. So why does it matter?
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting.
I think sometimes it's really hard because you write a book like Medusa and like Medusa has like, it's got trauma in it. It's got violence in it. It's like, I was really inspired. This is the third time I'm bringing it up today, but like, I was really inspired by like Blood Meridian and like, I reread it while I was reading Medusa because it is so brutally violent. But then when you Google like great American novel, it is always like in the top 5. And I know there's people that read Blood Meridian that say like, this book is graphic and violent and disgusting. But I think there's like parts of Moby Dick that are also like brutal and violent and disgusting. So like me getting past the point of like, what are other people going to think about this? I think that's a really important piece of advice that I wish I had years prior to this.
I think that's great advice. And usually I would end it there, but I've thought of another question that I want to ask you. when you are
Sure.
publishing something, and it may have been different for each of these books, what are your biggest fears? Because there must be something in you that has a worry about putting this.
Yeah, totally.
It's really vulnerable to be like, I've made up with these pictures in my head and now I'm telling you about them and I want you to tell me if it's good or bad. That's terrifying. That's a really scary thing.
Well, it's such a cliche. It's such a cliche answer, but it's the honest to God truth. It's like I'm either worried that like one of two things are going to happen. Like either nobody is going to read this or everybody is going to read this. And I think both of those things are like really scary, right? Like if nobody reads my book, then I feel like I just wasted all of this time and nobody knows how good it is. But then if I go like, but everybody's going to read it, and I'm like, oh, well, this book's not for everybody. You know what I mean? I don't think everybody was going to love this book.
Yes.
So I think like that's like equally terrifying. I will say like a little peek behind the curtain again. I use book sirens for my arcs. And the part of book sirens is that you can send it to certain people, right? Like I can send it to Sarah, be like, hey, you can get a PDF copy of my book, or book sirens just like pitches it to readers like out in the book sirens community, and they can pick it up, think, oh, this is interesting. I'll check it out, leave a review. When we're leading up in this process, Medusa 5 stars, Medusa 5 stars, Medusa 5 stars. I woke up one day and I had a review that was Medusa 1 star. And this human being absolutely just trashed this book to the point where like, I don't think anybody could say anything meaner about a piece of writing than this person did on Book Sirens. So for me, I was like, well, if that's the worst that it can be, I'll take that. Right. So I think for me, I'm past that point of worrying about like reviews and what people think. But you're right. It is like, it's a very vulnerable position to put yourself in when somebody is reading 300 pages of what you wrote.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's scary.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where like the idea of it is the what if everybody reads it thing that scares me the most, not what if nobody reads it, because if nobody does, then they're not going to see whether or not it's bad or good or have any judgment about it. But at least you got the worst review out of the way, and then everything else is going to look fine.
Everything else looks great.
Yeah. So yeah, I have had such a good time. It's been so nice to learn about you and your process and this incredible book, although I knew it already because I've read it. So don't be a loser. Go read it now. I'm sorry the chat didn't work. That was annoying and weird. But if you do have any questions for Kyle, or if you want to just drop a comment, please do. I don't normally do things like this, but please subscribe to this channel because I want to increase the audience for these writers. These people are writing incredible books, and I want more people to know about them. So if you could give it a subscription, that'd be amazing. It doesn't cost you anything. And also like this video and share it with your friends, and share the link for Medusa or Men Entombed in Winter. But thank you so much for being here today. I always forget to ask this. Where can people find you?
Totally. So if you have a question for me, you want to reach out to me, there's a number of places you can find me. My website is kylefarnworth.com. You can find me at Kyle Farnworth on X. You can find me at Kyle Farns with a Z on Threads, because somebody on Instagram has Kyle Farnworth and I've DM'd them numerous times and they will not respond to my DMs, even though they haven't posted any pictures. It's just my username. Can you believe that? It's bad for the brand. But Kyle Farns on Threads, FARNZ, Kyle Farnworth on X, www.kylefarnworth.com. Check out Medusa or Men Entombed in Winter. I'm sure you'll love it, and I would appreciate it very much. Thank you for having me on. I've been thinking about how this is going to be such a wonderful time for so long that it couldn't possibly like live up to that expectation, but it not only lived up to it, it surpassed it. I've had a wonderful time. Wonderful time with you tonight. Thank you for having me. And thank you again for like just the amount of love that you've shown this book. I appreciate it very much.
Of course. Well, thank you again for letting me read it. And if you feel left out because you haven't read it yet, then that's on you, buddy. It's out now. It came out yesterday. So now's your chance. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have KU, you can go read it basically for free. But it does look very, very nice in a paper bag, and it will come to you the correct way around. This is a mirrored camera, I believe. So it is a back to front in real life. But yeah, so I'm going to awkwardly wave, and I will see you on the other side because I have questions for you for backstage. Goodbye.
You got it. All right. Love you guys. Bye.